Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. Tony and I have been together for 2 years, and I thought we had a good relationship. Yes, although I agree, he has always been a bit dominating. I didn't think it was as toxic. But honestly, now that I think about it, I am finding myself questioning the entire validity of this relationship. Was I letting him walk all over me too much? Or was I genuinely not enough? Are a few of the many questions popping over my head currently. I'm not sure if it was just me being blinded by all the beautiful things that our relationship had, that I completely ignored the dirty business that was going on behind my back. Tony and I met at our local pub when I was back from college. We had the classic meet-up when he was with his friends and I was with mine. He approached me and asked me if he could buy me drinks. Being instantly charmed by him, I said yes, and we began talking. I still remember that day vividly. I was so charmed by him that I was feeling giddy in my head, so much so that the rest of the world around me seemed to not exist. And one thing led to another. We exchanged numbers and began talking. We spent a couple of weeks talking day and night with each other. We had our first real date, and things just flowed beautifully from there on. We fell more and more with each other. Now that I think about it, a red flag would be his overprotectiveness towards me. It was from the very beginning that I said yes to him. It was like he always looked uncomfortable whenever I spoke about a male friend until one day he requested me to just not talk about them. And like the naive girl that I was, I just went along with it. So we continued to date, and we both fall deeply in love with each other, so much so that he introduces me to his parents only after about 6 months of dating. And I soon realized that they are much like the very conservative and strict parents of mine. I know another red flag, but as you all know, I guess I was on a red flag collecting spree at that point. Well, we get engaged within the span of 1 year into our marriage, and everything except for the overprotectiveness seems fine, at least to me. So we start our wedding preparations, planning to get married within the next year. Hell, we even put down a down payment on the house that my parents wanted to give us for our wedding, and it got furnished full of gifts his parents wanted to give us. I was happy, my parents were happy. Well, of course they would be, since I was marrying a man of values after all. His parents were happy with me too, and so was he, because as much as I was able to act as the good, submissive, religious partner, I was also able to act as the wild partner when no one was around. I guess that is what he truly only liked me for, my ability to show submissiveness. So it's getting closer to our wedding date, and all seems well. He's getting busier with work, and I'm getting busier with wedding planning. We talk less during this time period, and I chalk it up to us being busy and under stress. So it's the week before the wedding. We're all winding up and setting to go to our bachelor party along with our wedding parties. So the bachelor's takes place, and I think nothing about it. I'm here having a blast with my girlfriends, and he's out there having a good time with his guy friends. It isn't all until it's about the middle of the night and my phone starts blowing up with call after call from Tony. I'm obviously too tired and drunk to pick up, and so just text Tony telling him the same. It is not long before he starts blowing up my phone with texts, and it's like after reading one text after the other, all my drunkenness is gone immediately. He has started to bombard my phone with his expectations from me after the wedding. One after the other, it's just full of texts that are so regressive and conservative that I feel like I'm reading some article back from the 80s. I show it to my best friend, crying, and she is as shocked as me. And that is when we hatch this plan. So the day of the wedding arrives, and it goes as smoothly as possible. Tony asked me a couple of times if I had read the list he sent me, and I always nodded yes, telling him how much I appreciated him for it, out of sarcasm. Well, the time for giving toasts comes, and before that, both Tony and I decided that we were going to give a small speech, thanking everyone for being there before putting on a slideshow of our photos. That is when I talk about our relationship, our beautiful days, and how much I thought Tony loved me regardless of what he thought of me. How he would never expect me to be a version of myself that I wasn't. And after all that, starting reading the list that he sent to me, talking about how things had changed even before our marriage in a humorous way. And boy, obviously, no one found the joke funny. Tony's face turned pale, as if he had seen a ghost, and my in laws were mad. They started berating me along with Tony. Eventually, my parents joined in the bandwagon, and the entire party hall had become like a hate on OP moment. I knew that was the moment I had enough and just walked out. Needless to say, my phone started blowing up after that by everyone, and honestly, what hurt the most was to see such a reaction from Tony and my parents. So, this is where I'm at currently, living with my best friend as I'm scared and questioning everything that went down. It's like after the energy wore off, I'm finding myself feeling conflicted as to if what I did was wrong. AITA? What should I do here? I met up with Samuel today, who is Tony's best friend, and one of the people present at the bachelor's party. He visited my best friend's place since we're mutual friends. Although I was hesitant to let him in at the beginning, he gave me the reassurance that I needed, telling me that he wasn't here to argue but to get something off my chest. After everything went down, I was ready to risk it and let him inside. As soon as we walked in, he just kind of broke down about how on the day of our bachelors, something happened that caused him to act the way that he did with his list and everything. So, to put it in short, he met his ex on our bachelors, who was there to celebrate her bachelors too. Do I need to say more? One thing led to another, and after a couple of drinks at the pub, they got themselves a hotel room and spent the night together. He was the one who had helped Tony get the hotel room, since Tony claimed he just wanted to get some rest, and how did Samuel find out? If you all might be wondering, it was through the messages on the group chat the next day. Tony and his friends bragging about everything that happened. That is when it clicked to him and everything made more sense. Samuel offered me to show me the text, which I turned down because I know he wasn't lying. Because now that I look at the list, it was full of sexual demands as well. And it clicked to me how Tony had once described the nature of their relationship. His ex was wild, even in front of Tony's parents, being the reason for the breakup. I immediately began crying at this point because even though I wasn't surprised at any of this, after figuring out that Tony was a horrible person, it was like he was still the man I loved so deeply. I began crying, and Samuel just kind of hugged me. It was like I had felt comfort in days except for the one coming from my best friend. It felt like someone was actually on my side. After we discussed this situation, we decided to talk about the legalities of this situation. We talked about lawyers and the house that Tony and I lived in, and Samuel told me that he would help me find a good lawyer for my case. So that is what I will be putting my full focus on for now. Here's an update for you all. I have not only gotten an annulment, but also completely cut off my family. Even with the truth coming to light, my family refuses to acknowledge the fact that Tony did anything wrong. According to them, since it was a bachelor's party and the fact that I had gone against their wishes to celebrate it, this is what I deserved. I was the reason why Tony slipped. It's almost funny because Tony's parents, who are just as conservative as mine, have a view completely opposite to this. They have effectively disowned Tony and made it a point to tell everyone what he did, and almost all of his family is against him as well. As for his friends, who were previously on his side, suddenly turned their backs on him as the news started spreading to their own parents too. As for his ex, that he ruined our wedding for, is pretending to not even know his existence. Her current partner has even threatened Tony to not mess with them, and there's practically nothing Tony can do because the pictures of them together were only with friends who refused to talk to him. Remember the speech I gave at the wedding? That has caused him to get in trouble too. I mean, obviously, that is what caused all of this, but what I mean is that I had completely forgotten that a lot of his work clients were present at his wedding, and after everything that went down, a lot of them refused to work with him. Satisfaction would truly be an understatement, as he has now not only lost his parents, where he used me to impress them, but also lost a major part of his income. Satisfaction would be an understatement because I feel like I have suddenly found a completely different sense of pride, confidence, and attitude in myself. It is not only the encouragement provided by you all, but also the push my best friend gave me the night before the wedding that has brought me here. So that is what I want everyone reading this to remember as well. If a man ever gives you a list of expectations, rip it apart and throw it in the trash can because that's where he and his thoughts belong. NTA, your husband is a manipulative, dominating piece of crap who will bring the list to life if you don't grow a backbone and run ASAP. You should be grateful that you at least have your best friend here because at times, some people don't even have that. If you're strong enough to make him embarrassed at his own wedding, then you're strong enough to make yourself realize that you can get through this. NTA, I'd file for an annulment ASAP to get away from that pathetic excuse of a husband. My mom has a huge potbelly pig as a pet. She rescued him from a farm. He's 7 years old, I believe. Back when I was planning my wedding, my mom kept on trying to add things to my wedding, specifically for the pig. For example, she wanted him to have his own buffet. I turned all her ideas down and told her pig will not be attending my wedding. Even after I told her I didn't want him at my wedding, she continued to try to get me to plan my wedding around him. She told me that she needs him to be there because it's her support animal. He isn't a registered support animal, even though he does bring her a big deal of comfort. In my husband's culture, pigs are seen as dirty animals, and it would absolutely be unfitting for me to have a pig at our wedding, especially because it would be disrespectful to his family. Well, my mom decided to bring her pet pig to my wedding anyway, even after I told her not to, and she showed up late. I could tell my husband was highly upset with it, but stopped me when I went to confront because he didn't want his new mother in law to hate him. My sister in law ended up getting scared because the pig rubbed up against her, which caused the pig to get scared and ran off and bump into some expensive glass decorations, which ended up falling and breaking into pieces. I was beyond angry at my mom. This would have never happened if she didn't bring her pig to my wedding, so I yelled at her to leave. She tried to blame it on me for not making my wedding pet friendly. Like, why would I change up my wedding for a pig guest that wasn't even supposed to attend? My mom sent me a long message telling me how I humiliated her in front of my in laws and that now she's embarrassed to show her face around them, and that if I would have just set up the wedding the way she suggested to me, none of this would have happened. Am I the a hole? NTA, your mother's complete and blatant disrespect for your boundaries and wishes for your day is appalling. You've headed her off numerous times regarding the pig, and she continued to disregard your wishes. Sounds to me like she needs to do some self reflection and remind herself that it's not her wedding to dictate. If she wants to have her pig at a wedding, she can go and renew her vows, if your parents are still together, or get remarried. I'd have been a lot less patient. NTA, a wedding is no place for a pig. If she was going to bring him, she should have had him on a short leash so he couldn't bother other guests. But legally, she has no leg to stand on. Emotional support animals aren't granted the same protections under the law as service animals. Sure, they can fly on a plane, but stores and restaurants aren't required to accommodate them, and you certainly didn't have to accommodate him for the wedding. If the wedding was far away, she could have brought him and kenneled him for a few hours and then gone home. There was no reason for him to be there. Your mom has no right to put the blame on you. Hold your ground. She owes you and your in laws a huge apology. You made it clear her pig was not welcome at your wedding. She chose to ignore you. She has no one to blame but herself for the embarrassment. NTA, your mother humiliated herself with her outrageous gimmick of thinking it was ever okay or appropriate to bring a farm animal to a formal event. Emotional support animal or not, it was not a safe and secure place for an animal. She knew that long in advance, and if she couldn't function without the animal present for even an hour, she needed to stay home and hold a special meal with you and your spouse to celebrate where the animal is accustomed to its surroundings. I, 28 female, am married to Jack, 29 male. We have a 3-year-old daughter, Daisy. I work in a museum. Originally, I wanted to be an archaeologist. I really like history and geography. I spent hours as a teenager watching documentaries, reading history books, going to museums, etc. And obviously, I still do because of my job. Whenever we get the opportunity to go on tours or trips, I get super excited to hear the history of different buildings. Recently, we booked a tour guide boat, which I was really looking forward to. It was the three of us that went, and for the first half, I was really enjoying myself, but it was also super hot. And Daisy ended up wanting to go downstairs where there is AC. I asked Jack to take her, since he isn't as interested in history, and he wasn't that excited for the trip. I wanted to stay upstairs because that was where the tour guide was and where you get the best views. Jack refused to go downstairs, saying that he was taking pictures and I should just go. I told him that he wasn't even listening and I could take pictures for him, but he told me to get over myself and take our daughter downstairs. I went down, but honestly didn't enjoy myself at all. The only view was the water, and you could barely hear the guide at all. It really ruined my mood because of how excited I previously was. And when we got off the boat, I told Jack that I thought he was selfish, since this wasn't something he was even interested in. He got really upset, saying that I was being childish and should get over it since it's just a boat and our daughter came first, and that I had probably heard all of the tour stuff before anyway, which no, I hadn't. I knew about some of it, but that's all. We've been tense since. I've tried to get over it, but I feel like he really disregarded my feelings, and he's still saying that I'm being childish for being annoyed. I don't know. AITA for calling him selfish? NTA, facts are facts. He was selfish. He knew you were very interested in what the guide had to share and that he himself couldn't care less. He completely invalidated you because he doesn't personally find those topics interesting. He's 100% TA here. NTA, being the default parent is really difficult, and I agree that what he did was selfish. If you are the only one that is ever having to give up experiences and time to go take care of your child, he isn't really being an equal parent. I have a young toddler, so I know how much it sucks to have to take your kid away from what you wanted to do. But both my partner and I have missed things to do it. It's okay to demand equality and to leave when he doesn't want to give it to you. NTA, facts are he was being selfish. He didn't care about the tour, but you did. And he didn't care about your feelings regarding that. Also, it's very audacious for him to tell you that daughter comes first when he's actually the one refusing to take her downstairs so he can take pictures. That's ridiculous. If he actually cared at all about you and daughter's feelings, he would have taken daughter downstairs himself. Your feelings are valid, and it's rude and disrespectful for him to invalidate your feelings and talk down to you. How often do you have to deal with your husband's blatant lack of care and disrespect? Are these instances a frequent occurrence? And to what degree? I would ask yourself these questions, as it's likely not the first time he's treated you this way.